Hi everyone, welcome back. So today we'll be looking into the same chapter, product design and development, product development process. That means specifically we are looking into the product development process, what it is, and all this thing. And there is other aspect in the same chapter, which is organization. That means that how you build the team, and how you segment the team, and how each team will connect or communicate with each other, how it will be done. So all this is part of organization, and I believe for our community it is not that important, because we are basically a small group of people in academic environment or industry also. Let's just say, those are not too much important, so I am skipping that, and rather I'm focusing on an interesting exercises that given in the book, and I'm trying to work on those exercises and having a fruitful discussion on that in this video. So the problem or the exercise that is discussed here is very interesting. So consider that you have to arrange a plan of making a food for 100 guests, and the ceremony is basically your, let's say, your son's or daughter's wedding. And so the question is, does the process resemble a generic product development process? Is cooking for guests analogous to a market pull, technology push, platform, process intensive, customization, high risk, quick build, etc., product? That means which product category it falls. Now it's a little bit funny, because this is not an example that you want to see here, and not easy to resemble. But the point is, this is a certain example which is relatable for most of us, and so I specifically will try to give contextualizing this particular situation in such a way that it makes more sense in terms of product development process. So let's assume that in your village or in your area or in your community there are like 100 families, that in your village there is 10 marriages will happen in the same day. That means there will be 10 families which will be arranging marriage of one of their member, and then the total number of guests in the village or in that particular community is 100 all the time. That means and the competition here will be that which family's marriage will attract maximum number of people, and to make the problem more interesting, let's assume that each guest by default will buy a gift of price 1/100th of the total budget of the making food for the 100 guests, plus some amount which, let's say, assume is a profit for you actually. Okay, so I should say that earlier also, and that is the fact that the total amount of budget that can be spent to making the food or arranging the whole thing, let's say, is same for each family. Now the objective is how many people you can attract to your ceremony, and by that basically you are so basically by default you have to prepare food for 100 people. Let's assume that. So and the only way you can make profit is to attract, let's say, maximum number of people, and also, let's say, 100, if not 100 people, but at least some good amount of people. And actually technically it will depend on the profit amount that we are saying here. That means the extra amount that they will pay, each guest will pay above the 1/100th of the total budget that we are giving to each family. And more importantly, by doing this, your family will gather the social capital that your family is better, or I mean, it's a little bit funny, but yeah, I think since I'm from village background, so I know this thing are little bit important, and it's part of a competition also, that not exactly this kind of peculiar situation, but there is always a competition of which family in the village is more prominent or more important in terms of finance, in terms of let's say some power, etc, etc. So the first question is whether this whole the I mean the problem, and not the product development process that we are thinking of in terms of this whole problem, whether it is resembles a generic product development process or not. So yeah, certainly, maybe I should give some context, extra context here. In generally, in if you are from rural background, if you are from urban background, then in generally people used to give contract to specific companies. Who will be arranging this thing? They will just pay the price, and they will certainly decide the money and all menu, and then depending on that they will negotiate and then pay the price, and everything will be arranged by the particular company actually. Let's just say, or sometimes those are unofficial also, but in generally in urban areas those are official companies. So yeah, so they have a range of things, even from you don't have to care about anything actually. There is a serving person to cook to various other things. They have everything. So but let's assume that is not the case. So in specifically in village, in a larger family, in a joint family, people used to do everything from scratch. So only thing they will do is they will hire a expert cooking person, cook and or chef, whatever you want to say, and the chef also, with some people who will do some manual work with the chef, because when they are making food for large amount of people, so it's not the chef who can in himself or herself can't do everything actually. So let's assume that is the case, because then otherwise the problem will not resemble any product development process, rather it's an outsourcing thing. So that will be more interesting. Now the question is whether it is a generic product development process, how we can see this thing in the product development process. So we know that first step of product development process is planning, and I will try to discuss in terms of, let's say, various segments of activities like marketing activity. So in generally in this type of planning, or whole thing will be let's say planning will be done by the family members, mostly senior person who will given much weight because they have more experience and etc, but all are part of the discussion. So and let's and we know that from our previous discussion, in the previous videos, that a generic product development process contains planning, concept development, planning, concept development, and I think just a minute. Planning, concept development, system level design, and detailed design, testing and refinement, production ramp up. That is the generic train, and each stage the activity in each stage can be divided into let's say marketing, design and manufacturing, and to some extent some other activities also. And let's assume this marketing team or design team, these are not like a very rigid boundaries. There can be same people having opinion about marketing and having an opinion about design and opinion about manufacturing also. So that is true in a big family. Basically a more senior person will have a lot of interest in opinion in each stages or even each category of activities like marketing, design and manufacturing. So yes, the planning basically one can think of. Now these all will look little bit funny also, but let's not deviate ourselves, because yeah, indeed this is a good example indeed, because we all have some resemblance to this example, it has some relatable context to the example. So let's focus. So the marketing in the phase of planning, so the marketing team or marketing activity will have certain discussion that what food people will like depending on the season, because depending on whether it's a monsoon season, whether it's a summer we avoid, most of us avoid certain type of food. So what are the, I mean basically you have to come up with a menu, and then the next thing will come. So the rough planning stage will be like what can be the menu, and so basically what food to avoid in, let's say in certain season, if it is summer you should avoid these, or etc etc. Very interesting that what are the age group of guest. Sometimes if it is I mean aged people, sometimes if the people are vegetarian, then you should have the option that with maybe a non-veg special menu course, you have a veg course also. So these are important. So in these all discussion will come into the rough planning stage. Okay, so the second step of planning phase will be activity related to design aspect, or activity done by the design team. And again, design team here is the loose concept, so everybody can have opinion. So in the planning stage, so people will not just fixated on the menu. So rather they will say if any special item can be added in the menu on depending on, and that should be related constrained by the finance of the or budget, because the again the to remind you that the objective is that you should have the best menu. Now the best itself can be defined in various ways. So that is itself is part of the product development process, that what is the best actually. So here I have actually added various extra elements that the budget is same for all the families and all these things, so to make the problem a little bit interesting. Yeah, so rather than fixated on the the menu and all this thing, total menu, so in the planning phase we focus on, like let's say on whether a special item can be added in the menu. So if it is a monsoon season, or whether the hilsha fish in generally in ceremony we don't provide hilsha, but yeah, yeah, it happens in I think in vetki is provided. Yeah, so people use vetki because it has yeah, I mean, hilsha is good, but we know that it has a lot of bones, so it will create problem, and in general people avoid that in the, because in a marriage ceremony people will come and then they will have a costly garments and all this. So they will try to they will should have a easy way to eat food which is easy to eat. The food should be easy to eat actually. So in generally, so I never saw any Bengali marriage ceremony where they are serving hilsha actually. Rather they use vetki, because in case of vetki you can get fillet and all these things, and that makes it boneless and easy to consume and etc. In the planning stage, the manufacturing activity or manufacturing team will discuss, like, for example, yeah, I mean, what are the supply chain problem can be, like, in especially in the rural area, a lot of items cannot be. For example, if you want a weight key uh, in your menu, but you know that weight key is not available with a certain size in your market, so you have to go to a big market in the local city, the nearby city, and you have to think about how. So all this discussion actually takes place if you go to any I mean, if you are happens to be from this kind of joint family, because I am from joint family, so I know this very funny, not funny, but a very interesting discussion. So they will discuss, like, oh yeah, I mean, how it is, it may not be possible, because you need to because in generally fish are, you have to buy those at early morning from big markets. So and if your marriage ceremony is in the night, so that's a question. So you can use ice and all this thing, but that's also not an easy unless you have some extra arrangement. And so all this thing comes into the picture. And finally, maybe a rough financial planning, like, what are the depending on the total budget, how can go actually. So that's more or less is the first or zeroth phase of product development, which is called planning. And the second, or sorry, first phase or genuine phase is concept development, where we come up with almost all the or a lot of exhaustive ideas, and we test them, and in the next stage, which is called system level design. And then things get we get more focused into, let's say, certain product idea. And here, of course, it will be the menu, like, starting from maybe some rice, etc., etc., some lentil, etc., etc. So the concept development phase is, I think, very interesting and very important for us, because here there's basically engineers and scientists comes into play. Again, here is funny, because there is no function of engineering and scientist here. But yeah, but then exactly, the experienced persons are valuable here as a product development team. So yeah, so first step of concept development again is the marketing team will decide, like, do customer survey. Now, what can be the customer survey in this context? So yeah, let's assume something simple, that what the people will like in the village, or the guest that will be inviting, what in general they will like, so whether in a non-veg, whether it will be red meat, or whether it will be like, whether it will be goat meat, or whether it will be chicken. So these are all important, because especially, I'll say, yeah, I mean, a lot of factors comes into the play. Yeah, identify main guest. That is an interesting task of the marketing team. That basically, the objective of all this is to gain social capital, and also recover the money and earn the profit, let's say. So so the social capital will depend on the attracting the main guest, or making the main guest more pleased about your food and all these things. So who are the main guests, and how we can uh, change the product development idea and the concepts depending on that. So in generally, those are um, aged people, or more senior people. So you want to have thing in the menu which will be liked by those age group. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there is any yeah, I mean, I will say one thing here, that new age I mean, the old people will like, in the end they will like the sweets in Bengali weddings, in generally the white sweet, and the rasgulla, and then some other thing they like. And of course, the sweet doi that we serve, I mean, use extensively. So those are like a traditional thing, and I guess to please the main guest, that means the aged people, you will have to give those things. Although maybe the younger people will like maybe something like some fancy ice cream, who knows, like a lot of things can be done. But so depending on that, you need to see, you are fixated on having those traditional things so that you want to please those, yeah, I mean the main guest, Now in the concept development, design team or design activity is the most important. So here we will come up with a rough list of menu. Now here the menu will so basically in I think I can only say from my perspective, which is Bengali wedding perspective. So we have like lentil, and the common thing is lentil, and then some vegetable, and maybe some fries, and then it will come the non-veg, or in case of veg it will be paneer, or maybe it's something like that. And of course it goes. So basically it's not like you can fill up everything in one menu actually. So I mean what I'm trying to say is that there is each segment. So it starts with some light thing, and then it will be the heavy main course, and then the dessert, etc. That's the thing. Now we can have for each segment, the lighter segment and the main course and the dessert, we can have list of options like what sweet to choose in the dessert, whether it will be lady chom chom or whether it will be simple rasgulla, etc., etc. What curd, I mean whether we'll have a mishti doi, which shop to choose for the mishti doi, because that's very important, because depending on the shop the taste of the mishti doi changes actually. So you need to have you need to invest more into that, and etc., etc. So the design aspect here will be fill up all the or interesting thing for all the segment, like main course what will be the, like maybe for the veg it will be paneer, who knows, like etc., etc. I'm not really a food guy, but yeah, it's not like the final menu, but it's like the list of menus. Like for each segment you have to have a list of things, like and then we'll experiment on that. Now in the concept development phase, the manufacturing team will estimate the rough cost, and of course the feasibility of each menu or each item that you have chosen for each segment, whether like the vetki is available in that time or not. So maybe technically one of the senior member in the family will have the phone number of some businessman, fisher businessman, I mean fishing man, businessman who do fishing, fish related business, etc. So they will call that, do you have this vetki or this particular fish for this time, next month, do you have the stock of things, and they will say that, oh no, this particular fish comes in this season only. So all this comes into the picture actually. So and yeah, so that's about the concept development, where we'll come up with a lot of exhaustive idea. And if you see any so let's forget about the wedding, but then if you see any product development in any company or any entity, so basically concept development is like coming up with exhaustive ideas and shopping around various technologies. I mean not shopping, but like at least to know that these are technologies are available. Like if you are building a car, then depending on what is the vision, like so that can be developing a car can be very complex product development problem, and it has a lot of intricate details. So in that case, generally in the planning phase, you have more specific idea that this is the segment I want to go for. Like I want to, so when Tata basically talked about producing nano car, so their goal is basically to create a very cost-effective car actually, so that the middle class Indian can buy it actually. And we know that yeah, so the design is some very small and etc etc, and somehow it doesn't work. Now it is not in the production, I think, but yeah, so you can see. But that I remember in those days, they are that is the marketing thing, you know. So that is the vision. So concept development is about attending to the making keeping in mind that those visions are, I mean, our vision is this. So we need to basically see how to, what technologies to incorporate, like, you know, maybe if it is about we want to develop a very secure car, because our or the people who will be buying their neighborhoods are a lot of gun, you know, a lot of violence happen, then so you want to invest on the wind actually, the window and the glass and etc. So maybe something better there, who knows. So that's the importance of concept development, where we exhaust most of the ideas and depending on the vision that we have for the product, you know. Now let's come to the system level design. Yeah, so here we'll say the marketing activity can be dropped out, can be dropped down, and then design activity will come, which will be related to final menu, and of course that's something that I've talked about already. But more importantly here, it will be more specific, like, you know, for each menu, what are the ingredients to be to need to buy in which what quantity. Also for each menu, what how to cook actually. So here basically, so we'll hire a cook actually. Let's assume that there will be main cook, the main chef will hire for like 1 week, and then we'll try him all the food, make him, I mean, say that him that, you know, you have to prepare all this food, and we'll test it one after another, and we'll decide you know, for each segment what to choose, you know, etc etc. So that looks like very very I mean very complex, but I think in big families that in generally can happen, you know. So in generally in middle class family, you can't nobody will hire a cook earlier than the, you know, the main day or the ceremony day. But let's assume that something happens, because otherwise we don't have the system level design phase, then we'll have the detailed design phase altogether. So yeah, and the manufacturing team will do the shopping planning, like, you know. So here of course we are not talking about the shopping for all the production ramp up, that means for all 100 people, rather for each menu, for each segment there are a list of menus and list of items, and we'll buy all of it, and for just for the prototyping, that means here it's testing, you know. Now it will be detailed design phase, where you have to do, depending on the menu, or like not like the list of menus, where for each segment you will have a lot of options. So the marketing, now here of course the marketing team will do not related to the main task, but rather like preparing for like the production or the promotion of the product. And here of course in this context it can be like printing invitation card, because those type simple thing make an impression on the mind of the guest, that, you know, okay, yeah, this looks like a very well spent and well decorated card actually. So people do invest on this thing, whether you believe or not, having a interesting card and all this thing. And there are dedicated shops where you can go and check all the varieties of cards, and yeah. Now here design team will decide upon a lot of interesting thing, like for each segment, like specifically in Bengali wedding. So basically the rather than bread, basically we'll have rice as a you know, the base thing. So which brand of rice to buy, like various brand, and So there is specifically people want a certain brand only. I mean, not like so here also it will depend on the budget and all these things. So but yeah, I mean, you can't use your the usual thing that you eat in home every day, because those are not good marketing aspect. I mean everyone knows that. So in generally we'll choose, like, depending on our budget, there will be some brand of rice we'll choose. Now spices also, depending on the brand, it can be different in taste. So in generally, especially in the chefs, they will order that, like red chilies powder, it has to be certain brand, some so those are, I think, very much people, I mean the cook basically says specifically that I want this brand. It really happens. And how each item will be cooked, because depending on, I mean, like for example, if you have some fish, it can be cooked in this way, that way, a lot of, so you have to, so the again the design team, that means basically the senior people in the family, they will decide, okay, so let's go for this, and etc etc. So now the manufacturing team will order cooking. For cooking, here of course you don't need, but yeah, let's assume that the basic cooking equipment will be hired, like maybe some kadai or etc etc. And of course defining quality assurance procedure is important. That means who will test it, and that person is also important, because a lot of people have different amount of a different subjectivity about certain food. I want this to be spicy, etc etc, but that people or list of people or range of maybe 10 people or 5 people will taste it, and they will come up with certain idea that this item you cooked is a little bit spicy for younger people, maybe, who knows, etc. So and also hygiene and etc comes into the play. Finally, the testing and refinement phase, where so here also, here basically the main task will be that the cook or the chef will prepare all the items for, let's say, 5 people who will be in the quality assurance team, and the promotion marketing team here will decide, so in our weddings, in our area, most of the weddings, so you'll have like certain food or certain activity thing for entertainment, like maybe certain juice or etc, which we have a stall. Actually, in general, you make a stall, and basically those are people are hired from the local market, that I give you this much money and you'll make like juice or maybe mocktail for 5, here of course 100 people, and I'll give you this much money. So let's assume these are part of the task of the marketing team. They have to understand the budget, what can be allocated for those aspect, and etc etc. Now design team here will basically, the activity here will be like the cook will make all the item for each segment, all the chosen item. So there is already their ingredients have been shopped, and then cook will prepare each item, let's say if not in one day, but at least let's say within 1 or 2 weeks, and each day the 5 people from the quality assurance group will test it, and depending on that they will give the reviewing and make a comment that this is how we want to change the cooking preparation style. Because what happens is that even the chef is the best person, but then we know that each community have little bit variation of cooking, and depending on the 100 people guest we are inviting, so they will have a certain, let's say for certain community, so they want thing prepared in certain way only. So there the quality assurance will come into the play actually. So to talk about in a generic product development, like a car or maybe some other instrument. Yeah, let's say people are some companies making torch, and the market or the customers will be, let's say, mainly farmers. So of course the budget for each making a torch is not that much that you can invest onto a very robust water proof technologies, something like that. But we know that the segment of the customer is farmers, and they in general take torch in the in night to for work. Sometimes they have to do something in the field. So it is better that the torch is little bit waterproof, if not the 100%. So how the product development team will make sure that we invest into certain aspect of the component so that it is more potent to being waterproof, etc. So anyway, so that's an example. Yeah, so that is the testing and refinement. The design team will do that, where the cook will cook, the chef will cook each item, and then basically the quality assurance team will decide what are the changes to made, etc., etc. And finally the manufacturing team in this phase will order. So because now everything is, so yeah, sorry, before that, and now for each segment in the menu, then the item will be finalized, that this will go with this, because yeah, depending on the budget, depending on the compatibility with the next item in the menu, let's say, yeah, etc., etc. A lot of things can happen, so let's not go into detail. So yeah, so then in this phase, basically the final menu will be fixated, and depending on that, manufacturing task will be to understand that for 100 people how much to order, how much rice to order, how much oil, how much spice of which brand of which quantity, how much quantity, etc., etc. Then also hiring workforce, because here for that particular day, it's not the chef who will just cook, but rather the chef will need, let's say, maybe 5 or 10 people who will do the manual task, like cutting vegetable, etc., etc. So for that also you need to hire people, etc. And then of course you need the utensils in larger number, etc., etc. So all those things will be done by the manufacturing team, and yeah. And finally the production ramp up, where the marketing team will basically here it will take care of the guest, like the guest will come, and then they need to have they need to look presentable, etc., etc. And then the manufacturing team will basically here the cooking, and the chef and his team or her team will make all the food with good with the specified detail, whatever been decided, and with specific quantity, with specific quality, etc., etc. And then that's it all about the whole product development process. And now here, of course, all this thing looks a little bit funny, but I think this is a good example in a sense that that each one of us has some relevance or some context to this kind of example. And although to make it real product development, it's a little bit hard, because here the objective is not so easy to establish, because there is no monetary benefit. Although I try to say that this is the constraint, etc., etc., fixed budget, and the gift will be given by the guest, etc., etc. But yeah, we can understand that. So yeah. And further, the question in the exercise, one question in the exercise was whether this particular activity or the product development is a marketable product or technology push, etc., etc. And I feel like it's a marketable product, because here the customer needs basically decide the product design and development, and basically there is marriage ceremony happening, and the design of the problem and the problem that I'm designing here. Sorry, the contextualize is that, if the objective is to gain social capital and then make profit, and also at vice versa, it can be loss also, depending on if you are not able to gather the amount of people that you are intending to, that you have to. So finally, of course, it is a market pull product, and yeah, that's it. So as usual, this is the same, the reference of the book from where I'm making this content. So that's it about for this week, and next week hopefully we'll start new chapter, or we'll focus on maybe some interesting exercise again similar to this, or more contextual to, let's say, some business. So that's it. Bye bye.